Heather McDonald has got the juiciest scoop. When you're on the road, when you're on the go, Juicy Scoop is the show to know. She talks Hollywood tales, her real life Mr. Segment serial data, and serial sister. You'll be addicted and addicted fast to the #1 tabloid real life podcast. Listen in, listen up. Woo woo. Heather McDonald, Juicy Scoop.
Hello and welcome to Juicy Scoop. I am very excited to speak to return guest, but she's also an author, Emily Paulson. Hey, hon. This is a juicy book about your life when you got sucked into an MLM.
Yes.
And you tell it all, and I'm very excited to talk to you. But I just remind people that are hardcore Juicy Scoopers, I did have you on probably like 2 years ago?
Gosh, I guess so. Yeah, it was 2021. Yeah, March of 2021, I think. Yeah.
You're an USC alum, and unfortunately, you went to the horrible gynecologist. That was where you went to have your exams if you were a student there, and you were so brave and put it on the record and sued and everything else, and that was fascinating to talk to you back then. But you are a married mother of 5. You live in beautiful Oregon, and let's get into what happened when you got involved in this skincare, cosmetic, multi-level marketing. How did they just start from the beginning? Because I have so many questions.
Yeah. So I had just had my last kid. So, I was a stay-at-home mom with 5 kids, and I'd been out of the workforce for a pretty long time. And my husband had a pretty demanding job. He traveled a lot. So I had this desire to do something. I wanted to earn money or just contribute in some other way than wiping butts and changing diapers, right?
Yeah.
I craved something else. And getting childcare for 5 kids was totally out of the question. And so when a friend reached out via social media, a friend from high school, and said, hey, I'm meeting friends for wine. You want to come out and meet? I was like, first of all, yes. Get me out of the house. I'd love to go out. And she worked for one of those companies.
Yeah.
So I knew she was meeting people for, work, quote unquote work. And I had seen some of her posts on social media, and I had been intrigued a little bit. I had that feeling, though, of cringe. It's one of those things.
Okay, so let's talk about the posts.
Yeah.
What were the things that intrigued you, and what were the cringy ones?
So it was the things I was looking for. It looked like she was making lots of money. That looked nice. And she was home with her kids.
Were her posts just got this new ride?
Yes. Or I just went on this trip. That was the other thing.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, gosh, she's going on a trip without her family and with all these women and all this camaraderie.
That sounds so wonderful.
I know, it sounds so nice. It was she was in wine country, and it looked really aspirational.
Yeah.
It looked like she was succeeding. She had all these friends seemingly. So those things looked nice.
Yeah.
But what was cringy was the constant. It was the constant feed of, oh, my business is blessing me with this. Wouldn't you want to join this? Come join my team. All of those things that you see and hear.
Right.
And, she'd reached out a couple of times. And so I guess that part of me was I don't want to have makeup parties at my house. And I don't want to be the person annoying people in their DMs. So I was a little bit mixed, but I'm like, whatever. She's inviting me out. I'm going to go meet her out.
Yeah.
So go out, meet with her. And it kind of was the perfect storm of, I was drinking wine, so that helped. And there's all these products out. And I was like, oh, those look good. I'm kind of looking for new stuff for my skin. And of course, I just had a baby. And so, stuff goes on. You're losing your hair and, your skin's dry and all that stuff. So I thought, okay, these would be good. So killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Mm-hmm. And again, there's all these women there. And I'm like, gosh, if they can do it, maybe this is something that I can do. And again, this was someone I knew. I went to high school with her. It's I know her. I like her. I trust her. She wouldn't lead me astray. And so by the end of the night, I was like, sign me up.
And what is the initial sign me up? What does that entail?
Yep. It entails basically signing a form with your social security number and a credit card number. And I paid $1,000.
So it's just $1,000.
Yeah.
And what do you get for $1,000?
You basically get this kit of products, and you can use them yourself. You can sell them. And the reason I got roped into the big one was there was a few different options. I don't remember what. It was like 300, 600, 900 or something like that. And the bigger package was the bigger discount. The more you spent, the more you got.
Got it.
And so in those moments where it's like, ooh, I can only get this right now, I might as well get all of it. I was like, if I'm going to spend 300, I might as well spend 600. If I spend 600, I might as well, just that like mind game, right? And so I thought, if anything, I'll buy this stuff, I'll use it, and it'll be a discount. If I never do anything again, that it'll be worth it. I'll have all this stuff. Yeah.
So you start using products and you like the products.
Yeah, I liked them. Yeah.
And so then when do you start like having parties or recruiting people?
Yeah. So it was the very first night when I joined.
Yeah.
I was, I drove home and I didn't want to go home yet because my kids were still up. So I wanted to wait till after bedtime to like get the whole night. And so I met my best friend out and we got some chips and salsa and I kind of showed her like the pamphlets and everything. And she was like, well, if you did this, like, is that something I could do? And she was sort of looking for an escape too. She was just in the middle of a divorce and all this stuff. And we were like, oh, this would be fun to do together. Like nothing may ever happen, but it would be fun. And so she signed up that day too.
But now was that girl then under you?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. So
now
the
you're already a
pyramid
star.
Yes,
okay.
exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
So now what do you guys do?
So honestly, the next thing that happened was I got announced on social media. So I kind of thought this is something I'm going to do. On the side, I'll try it out. I'm not going to take it too seriously. My friend signed up. We'll figure this out, right? Like I hadn't even got the products to my house yet.
Yeah.
And then I was tagged in a post by the friend I met up with.
Yeah.
And it was like, welcome to the company. And, Emily joined. She's a busy mom of 5. It was like this announcement.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, so I kind of got outed on social media.
Yeah.
Like my mom texted me and she's like, what did you join? Like, what's going on? I'm like, oh, crap. Like I hadn't even told my husband yet.
Yeah.
And so it was sort of that uncomfortable, like, well, now I guess I have to talk about it.
Right.
And so I was given all of these like scripts and like business, again, air quotes, things to follow. Like first thing to do, step 1, post about your business. Step 2, message these people. Make a dirt list.
What people? The people in your life?
So you make, this is really cringy. I talk about this in the book. But the first thing you do is you make a dirt list.
Okay.
Okay. A dirt list is comprised of people who would buy dirt from you. That's why it's called a dirt list. So those are the people who, no matter what you're doing or selling, would buy anything from you. And so you make a list of those people.
So and that's your mom, your sister,
totally,
whatever.
Your best friend, like whatever, like the best friend I met with.
Yeah.
Like she probably would have, no matter what company, what product, she probably would have joined just because it was me, right? So you make those lists and then you're given scripts to send out. Like, hey, hon, that's, the title, hence the title.
Hey, hon.
Yeah. I know that.
We haven't talked in 12 years.
Yes. I don't know if you've seen what I'm doing, but I'd love to pick your brain about my new business. We're the whatever, #1, blah, blah, blah company. You go on this spiel and, is there a time we can talk? Right. So that you go on the attack in people's DMs.
Right.
And then you make another list. It's called your dream team list.
Yeah.
Like I can't say these with a straight face, but it's people who, if you could pick anyone to like be on your team.
Oprah.
Yeah. Like totally aspirational, like the most famous people you know.
Oh, you actually, or it's like.
But like people who you would have contact with, like, who does my husband know at work who's really well connected or something.
Oh, okay.
So then you like write those people down.
Okay.
Right. And then you just, again, you've got scripts like to reach out to them and you start, again, sending messages, sending DMs, sending texts, sending emails, whatever, calling people, cold calling people, and getting people to like join you. So that's how that starts.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how many years were you involved in this?
Over 6, like 6.5.
And so talk about the success. Like explain that.
Yeah. So the reason I really got sucked in, and I think the reason I did so well at first, is because there weren't a lot of people in my area. I was in Seattle at the time, and this company really wasn't big there. Nobody had really heard of it. There wasn't anybody really working for this company there. And so when I talked to my friends about it, they're like, "Oh, cool, sure, I'll try that stuff," right? And so I had that. There was nobody using it, and I had money, and I had a big network of friends with money. And so that allowed me to like look like I was succeeding really quickly, even though like I wasn't like getting a huge paycheck or anything. But you start getting like tagged on social media. You start getting all these accolades from the company. Like you start promoting with all these weird titles, like you're a superstar number, 8 or whatever, and you don't even know what that means, but you're getting like those dopamine hits.
So are you just getting people under you? Or are you actually fulfilling orders?
There's some of that, but honestly, the products are just a way to get people in the funnel, in the company.
Because everything I've read is like, it's not even how many the products sell. It's that you have all these people that spent 1,000.
Right.
And then that 1,000 person has, 6 people under them who bought 1,000.
Yep. Because honestly, you never need anybody else to do anything again. If I had just bought the $1,000 kit, my upline would have made money from that and she would have been happy with that. Then she'd go recruit somebody else.
Okay.
And ideally you want someone who's going to sell and recruit other people because then you earn a commission on that.
How much commission do you get for each person?
So it's different for each company, but
Right.
You earn money on whether it's 10%, 5%, 20%, depends on the company, on anybody who joins you in your downline. So, someone joins me, I earn money on their sales. Someone joins them, I earn money on her sales and those sales below them. So it's this, again, it's a pyramid. So
Right.
all the sales flow up. So the bigger your pyramid is, the more you make. And so it's all about recruiting. It's about getting as many people as possible because even if you're just selling product or recruiting people, that's what's important, is more people. And when you do buy a product as a customer, which anybody who probably has ever bought from an MLM would know, is you're never left alone. Like, say you buy an eye cream from me or
Yeah,
something.
okay.
I would be in your DMs every month like, hey, do you need to add anything else to that? Anything else you want to try? The best way to get a discount is to join as a consultant. Like now you're just another target.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you don't really have to do at this particular company, you weren't doing the Mary Kay parties or the Tupperware parties.
Yeah, I think I had a party at my house to begin with, like a launch party. I think I did something at first, and then it was like going to retention events. So the other thing that these companies do, and they do it everywhere, all over the country, is they have little local events where it's like, come learn about XYZ company. And consultants like me, I would bring friends to it. I'd invite friends to it, and they'd have some speaker who was a consultant talking about how this company changed their lives. And again, really aspirational. And they'd have products there.
And that's like a 3-day convention thing?
No, these were just like a night, right?
Oh,
just one
okay,
evening,
okay.
just like an easy couple-hour thing. But then again, you're in the funnel. Like you're going to be bugged like every day until you sign up. And you've got this boss babe like on your ass constantly.
Yeah.
Now, what'd you think of the presentation? And, are you going to join? So, there's those type of things all the time that you really, you're not required to go to, but it's like, if you want to be successful, you got to show up to these things.
And
Told that.
And when did that name become so associated with stay-at-home moms or were in multi-level marketing, the boss babe?
I don't know. I know it was there when I joined, but I think it came, there was this girl boss.
Oh, girl, yeah.
It kind of started with that, and then I think it morphed into boss babe.
Right.
And, all these infantilizing, like, monikers, which you don't hear for men. Like, you're a boy boss. Like,
Yeah,
you're
I
a
know.
dude boss. You never hear that.
I know why. I always thought that was like, yeah, so what?
Yeah, I know. Just like, I'm just a boss. Just call me a boss.
Yeah, like...
Yeah.
And, okay, so then what about the vacations and stuff that you get to go because you're a certain level? Do you go on like cruises and shit like that?
Yes. So that's one thing that's really, it's ironic that they're all called like, oh, I earned this free trip, I earned this free thing, because you have to earn them, right? Like, with a normal company, you might get bonuses, you might get a company trip or something like that, but you're also getting paid for a job like during that time. This is just, you're doing unpaid labor all the time trying to earn these things, and whether that's like recruit 2 people and do this weird like dance metric thing. So you have to qualify for certain trips, whether it's, a trip like a cruise, a lot of companies do cruises, or a trip to Mexico, whatever. And then they give you a stipend. So they'll give you a certain stipend for like really shitty airplane travel, which you always end up upgrading.
Yeah.
And then generally, if you're going to go on a trip, you don't go to Mexico for like 2 days, and so you upgrade and extend a little bit, and it's always a crappy hotel room, and so you like upgrade that. So it's always like the bare bones.
Right.
And so you always end up spending more money. That's the first thing, like these free trips. And the more I talk to people, like I interviewed a lot of people when I wrote this book, that was the one thing that always came up. It's like, oh, I earned this thing and it ended up costing me twice as much, or, I got a fine from the IRS because I didn't claim it on my taxes, because you're then taxed on it at the end of the year. It's on your income as a payment, basically. Like, say it's a $10,000 value trip on your end of year, your 1099, it'll have $10,000 for, whatever Mexico trip as income, which, okay, great, thanks. But like, you can't pay your rent with a Mexico trip, right? So it's not money.
So when you're doing this, what are your checks like from this company?
Yeah. So at first they were, I didn't expect anything at first. And so it's like the first check was like $700. And then the next one was like, $1,000. And then, but it was like, I was a stay-at-home mom. I thought that was pretty good.
Right.
And it seemed pretty easy at first. Like, I was just talking to people. But then as time went on, I had to start like putting more money into the system, because I had to, again, pay a babysitter to go to these retention events.
Yeah.
I had to buy all this product myself. Then there'd be like qualifications for things that your upline would be like, oh, just buy a couple extra sunscreens or something, and then you'll qualify. And then there's a...
And then you'll hit the level to get the next thing.
Exactly.
Right.
Or you'll...
And where are all these products? Do you have like a room in your house, or just like a
like
storage?
a closet? Yes.
Okay.
Like
all
a
right.
closet. And they always say like, oh, you don't have to carry inventory. And it's like every chick I know who's in an MLM has just closets full of their own products.
Yeah.
Because you are incentivized for purchasing it. You're incentivized for having it, for all this stuff, for bonuses, all these things. So yeah, you qualify for a trip, and then, you're given a stipend, and you're taxed on it. And and then
are you like at a seminar all day long, and is it weird stuff, or do you have celebrities there? Like, do you get invited to like certain dinners if you're the top person, and if you're not, you have to eat in the room, or
yes.
what?
You like qualify for the parties. And again, this is another incentive along the way to get people to spend more money, right? Hey, if you buy this thing, if you sell this many things, if you recruit these many people, you'll qualify for this like extra fancy super duper sparkle party, or the bling suite, or these stupid things that have like, whatever, these names, right?
And did you like all these women, or did you think they were kind of geeky, or what?
Like, I really liked the person I joined. I liked the people on my team, and like the people you generally bring in to join you are your friends and family. So like those were my people anyway. So they were great.
Did you ever have to put pressure on somebody that was just like, Emily, like, just please, like, this is just too much. I need to get a regular job. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that.
Yes. So actually the friend who joined me, the first person to join me, and I do talk about this in the book, she, again, got a divorce, and like she wasn't, excelling as much as I was, right? So her paychecks weren't as big as mine. And so she had to get a real job. And at that point I had drunk the Kool-Aid like pretty hard. And so I was like, why are you applying for a real job? Like, why not just put more into this? And that's one thing MLMs do too, is they really malign like 9-to-5s. Like, why are you working at a 9-to-5 when you could be your own boss babe, and make your own hours and all that crap. So yeah, and
what did she say?
She was realistic. Like, this doesn't have health insurance. This doesn't have a 401k. Like, this isn't stable, right? But for me, who had a husband who had all those things, like, that's not where my mind was.
Oh, good
right?
point.
It was like, and that's why people who really are successful, which again, it's like a 0.00% of people who are successful, they have a second income. They already have money. There's nobody who's at the top who like came off the street, right? You already have to have a very significant amount of like financial, socioeconomic privilege to get in the first place and to succeed.
That is so interesting.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine was, got sucked into her friend's MLM.
Yeah.
And I used the product too, but I was like, this is, going nowhere.
Yeah.
And then that person, her husband was like, got diagnosed with cancer or whatever. And so she said, what can I do for you and your family? And she goes, just keep pushing the product or whatever. Just keep working on your team. Just keep building. And when my friend told me that, I'm like, this is so wrong. Like, you're making 12 cents. I'm like, it's not like this is, and you have another thing, but just, it's like people will get sucked into it that are professionals. They do have professional careers, and they're just like, yeah, okay, fine, you know? So then when did you start to realize, you know, that it's getting ugly and weird?
Yeah. So I think there were things all along the way that I was like, but then you see.
What's your husband thinking, first of all?
So he was very much like, do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Like, good for you. And he saw like I was happy and it seemed like I was doing well. So he was like, kind of like, that's cool. But he was very much not the boss babe husband. He was like not.
What's a boss babe husband dream?
Have you ever heard of retiring your husband? Have you ever heard that phrase?
Oh, yes. I think I have seen this on these shows.
Oh, God. So retiring your husband is not retirement. It is like your husband quits his job and then joins you in the MLM.
I remember this from the Lula.
Yes, Lula Rich.
Yeah, yes.
So then, and this is perfect for the MLM because now you're screwed. Like you have
you
to
really can never get out.
You have to rely on the income.
Oh.
And it's, I mean, retirement is like sitting on a beach and going, you know, retirement is not shilling an MLM. So, but that's like the goal. It's aspirational to retire your husband. And as I got higher up, it was like, why is your husband still working? Like, it looks bad that your husband's still working. That was the messaging. And my husband's like, fuck you. Like, no.
Now, at that point, how much were you making a year?
The most I made in a month was $40,000.
Okay. Well, that's significant.
Yeah. And I never made, like, I made that 1 month.
Yeah.
And the rest was, you know, it was like a kind of went up,
so what was like your
went
best
down.
year then?
I mean, well, I talk about this in the book too, is on paper, you know, I made like $400,000.
Yeah.
But that's before taxes. So that's the other thing about MLMs. It's before taxes, it's before expenses, which are really high. And anything else, any side expenses, again, like childcare, babysitters, you know, additive things, buying products. And so it was like cut in like a third.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, still great for like a stay-at-home mom. But there's a lot of this like mixed messaging where I was considered $1 million earner because I had earned $1 million over that period of time. But when you divide it up over a certain number of years, it's like, it's not that much per year, especially if you take out taxes.
Yeah.
So, and that's why all the posts are like, again, super aspirational, like, oh, I've become a millionaire. It's like, well, that's not really what millionaire means. Making $1 million over 6 years.
So,
right?
like, what came first? You watching cult documentaries or
Getting out?
Yes.
So the first thing that happened is I got sober.
Oh, okay.
So I stopped drinking.
Now, why did you feel like you needed to stop drinking?
It was a problem. And it was really exacerbated by the MLM. It was like something that was kind of already a problem. And then I all of a sudden had all these excuses to drink more because I was like going out with clients and I was going to all these events and there was always champagne. And, you know, so I was drinking a lot more and it became a problem. So I quit drinking beginning of 2017. And that's when I was like, like I can't do all the things I've been doing. Like I couldn't send the cringy messages. I couldn't do the cut and paste things. I couldn't post
As a sober
stuff.
person, you couldn't.
Yes. It was like I was all of a sudden like the beer goggles
You were
off.
clear. You were clear-headed.
Like I had totally drank away my intuition about
Yeah.
it. And then I really started seeing things I didn't like.
And now, how many years were you in it once you became sober?
Almost 3.
Okay.
And at that point, I had like hit the top. Like I was at the top of the pyramid. And I really believed at that point, like it was because of my hard work. Like I really worked hard, but nobody
And honestly,
else,
how many hours a day or a week do you think you were putting forth? Like all the time you're on your phone looking?
All the time. I mean,
so probably 8 hours a day.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
Easily. Because even when I was like with my family or at like the phone was always in my hand. I had to be so connected all the time. I was like at the beck and call of if someone, you know, answered my DM, I'd write right back. You know, I was really, really I was very in. So that's one thing I noticed too, is how much time I was on my phone. And I also started to see like, okay, I had succeeded, I had achieved this like pinnacle, but nobody else I brought in had. And I really believed, like, well, they must not be doing all the things, until then I was sober and I was like, actually, they are. They're doing everything that I did, but it's not working for them. And I started to see, like, oh, mathematically, it doesn't work that way because of saturation. And now there's so many people in Seattle who are doing this. Yeah. And it can't work for everyone. And that's why I'm succeeding, because all of these people are paying in and then not. And they're just continuing to pay in, this like sunk cost fallacy. Like nobody was succeeding, you know? And even the highest achieving people, it was like they were making a few $100s a month or something.
And where is your girl that's ahead of you that initially invited you to the wine dinner from high school at this point?
So I've actually surpassed her.
Oh, okay.
But she's making money off of me. So like financially, she's doing great.
Yeah.
But I've surpassed her like in title, right?
So it's really like the goal is you two could get a golden nugget, which is Emily.
Yeah. Yep.
Some of yours might be duds.
Yeah.
Some of them may be rocks. Some of them you'll never hear from again.
Yeah.
But you only need a couple.
Rock stars.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, so that's why you never stop.
Yep. That's why you never stop.
Never
You keep
stop.
looking.
Everybody you meet.
It's a numbers game.
From the girl selling your shoes to the dyeing your hair to like, you know, at a cocktail party.
Yep.
It's always on your mind to try to recruit somebody.
Yes. Yes.
So you're never off the clock.
You're never off the clock. And you start getting so used to it that like you walk in somewhere and you're like, oh, she'd be really good. Oh, she'd be like, you start seeing people as like walking dollar signs, which again, once I was sober, I was like, ooh, that's gross, right?
And then did you ever have anybody that, you know, would call you or share like a sob story and then you still had to try to keep them in the game because you were so trained? Tell me about that.
Yeah, like people who, again, weren't seeing success and they were feeling like they were spending more money than they were making. And so we'd have all these like platitudinous like sayings like, well, you got to spend money to make money, or that's just the rent on your business. Or again, you're like you're spoon-fed all of these things to say. And it's hard because at that point you're like, okay, I've brought this friend in. I want them to do well. I believe I can do that. They can do well because I did. And so like that for so long, I really believed that this was the best thing for people. And then when I saw that it wasn't and it wasn't working, then I stuck around, you know, a lot longer than I think I would have because I felt guilty for roping so many people in.
And like, so when did you like actually say it out loud to your husband or whoever, like, I feel gross about this and I want to get the fuck out?
Yeah. So I wrote a book in 2019. So once, I would say at the end of 2018, beginning of 2019, I started realizing like, I want to get out. I want to be done with this. And so I told my team, I told my customers like, hey, I don't like this anymore. Like, here's what I used to believe. Here's what I believe now.
Are you really telling your people this?
Yeah.
And then does someone above you get wind of it? And they're like, oh, yeah. We like, this is like a Scientology, like, you know, Miscavige comes and knocks on your door
for
or
sure.
what?
It was very much like, don't quit. Like, okay, understand you're not happy, but do not quit. Because as long as I'm still there, it doesn't really matter what I'm doing. I'm holding the pyramid in place, right?
Oh.
So my upline was like, I understand you feel that way. Totally fine. You know, just tell your customers, like, I can help them out. I'll help your team. You know what I mean? So I'm still there. I'm not posting anything. I'm not messaging anyone. I go into writing. I start going into recovery advocacy. Like, that's what I'm doing. And I kind of thought, like, I'll just put this on autopilot and still, you know, collect a check till it dries up, right? That's what I thought.
Okay.
I didn't think I would actually, like, quit. And one thing she kept telling me was like, you built this. You should continue to make money off of it. And like, I believed that to some extent. And yet also I was like, it was just the circumstances. And like, it was luck really that I got in when I did. So that was all, you know, my book came out, then COVID happened.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I was home. I was completely separated from the MLM. You know, we couldn't get together for anything. We couldn't go to conventions or anything. So there was that separation. I started listening to the Dream podcast.
So the Dream podcast is, we were talking about it. That is a really juicy one. It came out a couple years ago. What I liked about it is these people did like deep dive investigations on all these different MLMs.
Yeah.
From like Mary Kay to Tupperware to some that were like from the 80s.
Yeah.
And like they remembered their aunt did it. And I mean, I don't know if I listened to every single episode, but I listened to a lot. And it was really eye-opening about how you sell the dream and how some people really get screwed over. Some are like funny and it's kind of a funny like, though that time my mom joined an MLM, like so it's not all tragic, but some of it is, Some of it times it gets to a tragedy point.
Yeah.
Okay, so go on.
Yeah. So I listened to that, and honestly, I don't know who recommended it to me. I don't know how it came into my, I was skeptical, right?
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, I'll listen to this. And I was kind of listening because I wanted to prove that like my MLM was different.
Okay.
Which is something that a lot of people do. Like, especially if they see this book, they're like, oh, well, my MLM's not like that. But like, spoiler, they're all the same. So I started listening and I'm like, well, that's exactly the same. Mm-hmm. We do that too. And the next one, exactly the same. And there were so many parallels. So then I started kind of diving deeper. And the other thing that was happening was there was a lot of just really predatory behavior during the pandemic.
Like
where,
what?
Like all of these women who are like, hey, you lost your job, join this MLM, or, use your stimulus money for
stimulus money.
There was a lot of that. And actually,
so like when the checks would be dropped,
Yes.
they'd be like, hey, today would be a great day to like DM
to join,
30 people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, people can join you. We had scripts. And it was actually, the FTC actually cracked down and like gave fines to companies because they were doing this. And also there was a lot of product misinformation, like buy our essential oil and it will cure COVID, or use our immune booster. And so there was a lot of that, just medical
God.
misinformation.
Yeah.
So I was like, I can't be involved in that. And then there was a lot of PPP loan fraud. So, it was the paycheck protection. So like, say if you, podcasting like went under and you had to pay your employee. And so it was like, helping you pay your employees. That's what it was meant for. Mm-hmm. MLM reps were excluded from it. Like you could not do it if you were an MLM rep, but plenty of people did. So if you search any company, like you can search Pampered Chef or Modere or any MLM company, and you'll see people come up who took out money with the parent company name to like pay themselves. And there was just so much at that point, and I was still hitting the top title of the company. So here I was doing jack shit. I was doing nothing, and I was so grossed out by everything, and yet I was still achieving, and my team was still like grinding and not achieving. And so at that point I was like, I'm out, and I fully just terminated my account.
And how did you do that?
I just had to send in a little form, just sign a form.
And what about the girl ahead of you?
She was not thrilled about it.
But she still gets money from the people below
so
you that
they
stay.
all rolled up to her. They rolled up to her. So now she has the title I had.
Yeah.
But if you see on social media, it's like all based on her hard work and everything, and not because her team rolled up.
And then at that point, she was like, well, who cares? I'm going to get your people anyway.
Yeah.
So maybe sometimes people do want you to leave.
Oh, yeah. And there's definitely like buying out your downline, or there's
What
people,
does that mean?
Like basically you have someone who's like a me who is like in the way, and you could have people direct to you who are working.
Who are into it still.
Yes. And so that would make your title higher, and, you can basically pay them money so they leave.
Oh, are you bummed you didn't get paid?
No, because I knew, in fact, she offered.
Oh,
And
how much did she offer?
Like $80,000.
Okay.
Yeah. And at that point I was like, I knew I wanted to talk about it. So I didn't want to have to like sign an NDA.
Oh, got it.
Or anything like that. So I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm just going to
exit. So like what are some of the response of people knowing that you're writing about this? Maybe they're still in something like this. Maybe they're recovering. Maybe they really love it and are pissed. Like, are you hearing from everybody, or what did you get mostly?
So it was really at first when I quit, and then when I published the announcement that my book was coming out, it was like, oh my God, how could you do this? This is such a betrayal. So basically anyone in the MLM, kind of couldn't talk to me anymore. But there are a lot of people in who are like, oh my gosh, thank you for doing this. Like, I see this, this is gross, but they're still involved. But in the last few days, what's been interesting is a lot of MLM people are like, oh my gosh, I love the book. It's so good. I can't share it on social media because my upline will be pissed, or the company will be pissed, or whatever. Yeah. So I think there's a lot in here that if you're in an MLM, you will totally relate to. And I think it's important too to know, like, there's different ways to do things. Like and we were talking about the celebrity aspect, which I thought was really interesting, because there are some of these products that I'm like, why is this Real Housewives selling this? And explain why they
that happens, because I thought that was weird, but then you made sense when we talked about it off air. Tell me.
So if you're a celebrity,
Yeah.
you have an immediate following. You
Right.
have all these people who are willing to do whatever to be in proximity with you. So if you join an MLM and they can join too, they're going to join you. They're going to do whatever you're doing. So it's like, oh, I'm going to pay $500 so I can talk on the phone with the celebrity. I can say I'm on her team. Like, there's going to be people who just pay the money just to be close to that celebrity. And so, like, the Real Housewives, you know, the gal who's on Sister Wives,
Yes.
you know, like Britney Spears' mom. Like, there's a lot of people
that did it.
yeah. Because they have an instant following.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember there was like there was this woman who was the the college speech. What do you call it? The commencement speech.
Commencement speech, yeah.
At one of the schools I went to. And I was like, why did this girl get picked? You know, it's just because she like worked, she was a lawyer and like worked for like Hillary Clinton or something. And it was a really boring speech. And then afterwards, because we were there because my friend's daughter was graduating, afterwards, like, we were getting hit up as alumni because she was also part of a cosmetic MLM.
Oh, God.
And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Like, this is the commencement speaker? I mean, I was just like,
Tacky.
who went there for her own gain of like, oh, now I'm in these Facebook groups of this, you know, alumni of a bunch of women that, you know, are, you know, social and fun and have, you know, some money and some brains. And like, it's the perfect.
Totally. And you're told to do that. Like, join affinity groups, join moms groups, join whatever, biking groups if you're into that. And so, and then friend people. So like, you're always looking to like increase your network, and then those people see you post about your stupid products, and it's
What about when somebody comes and they're like, my husband says I can't do this anymore because I haven't made any money and I've already put $12,000 into it, and you know, we fight about it, and what would be your party line to say to that person?
I have heard people tell their downline to threaten divorce because of not being supportive. So that's considered not supportive, right? Like, oh, you don't believe in what I'm
like
doing.
You're a suppressed person,
yes,
like Scientology.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's really seen as like, well, you don't support me, you don't love me. So there's scripts around that. Like, here's something to say, like, one more month, then we'll qualify for this, or this is how it's improving my life, or whatever. There's ways to talk around every single objection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in the is it LuLaRoe?
LuLaRoe, yeah.
LuLaRoe. I think in that one was where, or one of the docs or something, where they were like, open a credit card line without your husband's knowledge, or like do all these things behind your husband's back financially to stay in it. And I do think a girlfriend cult, whether it's an MLM or just it can be really bad. You know, like, even if it's just like, I saw this thing I've talked about on the show before where this woman wrote a book of how she's like, you know, all these women for so many years that would tell their girlfriends at brunch, kick him to the curb. You could do better. Come on, girl. It's seen as supportive, but in some ways it's like holding people back because it's like, why? Wait a minute. You know, who else is out there, lady? Take a minute. I don't know. Like, just. So it's a weird thing. And then you're always like, well, my girlfriend said, and, you know, and now you not only have one girlfriend, but you have like several that are, you know, saying your husband's a dick.
Yep. And so that's why it's culty, right?
Yeah.
Because then you're in this environment where everyone's saying the same thing, doing the same thing. You feel like it's supportive. You feel like these are the supportive people. So anyone out here, even if it's your mom, even if it's your husband, who is not like believing in you, is gonna feel like they're wrong.
Yeah.
And you're right. Yeah.
Were there mother-daughter teams?
Oh, totally. There were mother-daughter teams. There were teams of like entire families. There was a lot of that.
We talked a little bit about this, but was there some real red flags, aha moments that you were just like, I cannot?
Yeah. There were red flags all along the way. Like, they're easy to see looking back, of course.
Yeah.
But a lot of the, like, you're not allowed to be negative. So it's this toxic positivity of, you know, you have your team Facebook page where everyone who's in your downline is on there, and nobody's allowed to complain.
Yeah.
Because if you complain, that might spread. And, you're told like what to post on social media. You have like a list of things you can and can't post about. And you're told not to be like.
What can and cannot post about?
Well, you like are given certain pictures you can post and certain language you can post because you don't want to.
Certain pictures like that you would take with your family or like
No.
actual stills?
Well, yeah, like of products and stuff like that,
got it.
right? That are like approved. And then you can't make income claims technically, but like every post you see really is an income claim. It's like, oh, I'm on this trip. Look at me working. Yeah, or I'm working from the beach. Like that is still an income claim.
Yeah.
But one of the really culty things is like, don't be negative. Don't post on social media about like how much you hate your job. Don't post about that your skin is bad because people will think it's the products. Don't post anything like politically because you'll alienate half your audience. So like you're not allowed to even be a person. You're this caricature of the MLM, especially the higher you get. You're like representing the company in a way that you can't even be yourself.
I mean, were you so freaked out when you saw about the murder of the guy, the Colorado? I can't remember the name.
Yes, the
Colorado man. He murdered his wife and two daughters, and she was hardcore in the MLM. She'd just come back from a trip from Phoenix, and her product was Thrive, and it was like energy, vitamins, patches to like make your mood, and everything was about image. And even possibly having that third child was something that looked like the ultimate success and perfect family, that you have two girls and now he gets a boy. And when that documentary, when they show about, wait, can you just look that crime up so I know the names and the documentary? Because I know people are going to be asking for it. And the guy was cute and she was cute, but they were living beyond their means. And he had like a steady job, but like kind of a capped kind of salary. And then she was doing all this. Yeah. And she was getting so into it that was causing them to be a lot in debt. But everything on her social media was exactly what they told her to do. The how to present this image.
Watts. Shanann Watts, yes.
Shanann Watts. Was it Shanann?
Shanann, yeah.
Shanann and Chris Watts. And then Chris Watts, even when she films telling him that she's pregnant, and at this point, we know that she's already, I think he already had a girlfriend at that point.
Suburban Nightmare.
Yeah.
Oh, the show is Suburban Nightmare. And, I mean, there's a lot on it. But it is, if you're not that familiar or you want to revisit, it is like, I really think that had so, I mean, granted, nothing makes somebody murder their wife and kids. But it was an element to their story of this perfect life and not really being honest with each other and not being... and being sucked into this whole thing.
Yeah. And I mean, the entire documentary is like because she had so much on social media that, she had posted, and that's what you have to do. You have to, your entire life, like your whole image is the company. And, you've got to go in your stories all the time because you've got to stay relevant and you've got to show your kids. And that's one thing I started to get really uncomfortable with. Again,
they encourage you to show your kids.
Oh, yeah. You're very encouraged, because if you just post like products, you want people to join you. It's you that you want, like you're selling yourself.
Right.
So it's almost like this weird influencer thing, but you're not an influencer. You're selling for this MLM. And I didn't like constantly like having to be on stage and put my kids on stage. And it's like anywhere I went, I'd have to take a picture. And that's one thing that I, stopped doing. And, looking back at it now, like when Facebook memories pop up, it's just like, God, it's so sad that I felt like I had to be behind the camera instead of like enjoying what I was doing because it was all to post this aspirational stuff to get people to join.
Yeah. I mean, even, with my business as a comedian, a podcaster and everything, social media is such a big part of it. And I'm really grateful. I couldn't do it without it. I mean, there's a reason why we can do all these things because we have that. But yeah, I mean, there's times where now I'm like, look, I know that we, got to get at least one photo.
Yeah.
So I'm like, the minute the party starts or whatever, I'm like, let's take the photo.
Do it now.
And then I go, I'll look at these later tonight.
Yeah.
I'll send you some if you like them. And I'm like, that's it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I want to enjoy the Memorial Day party, but I also am not stupid.
Yeah.
And if my friend who is a comedian is also going to be on my show next week, and we do it for each other. We have to post,
Yeah.
you know. But I think about just like a regular mom that's now sucked into this,
Mm-hmm.
and where their kids are a thing. Like my kids, I really never featured my kids much.
Mm-hmm.
When they were really little, I didn't, because I thought that was weird. And then I was like, God, I should have exploited them more. And then I was like, then they were like not into it. Now they don't care.
Now they don't care, yeah.
So if there's something funny that's happening, I'm like, okay, fine.
And you can ask,
Yeah,
right? They're
right.
old enough that you can ask. I think
Right.
it's with little kids and stuff, like they don't have your like, they can't give you permission. And like, I use pictures of my kids in like my convention presentations, like to make it cute. And like, now I'm just like, why?
So then you were like a speaker.
Oh,
You were
yeah.
that.
Yep.
And what was your speech like?
So this is the other thing that happened. So
Yeah.
once I got sober,
Yeah.
so MLMs are all about the sob story, right? They're all about like,
I feel like your
joined.
drinking wasn't that bad.
Oh God, it was really bad. I'll give you my first book and then you can read that and you'll be like, yep, you were a shit
So you
show.
had like blackout.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like
All right.
I was okay. And nobody else really knew how bad it was.
Just because when you were like, I went to places and there was champagne. I'm like, I don't even get buzzed off champagne.
oh
so
no,
I don't even know what you're talking about.
But like,
okay.
I drank like before and after. Like I drank a lot.
Okay.
So the other thing that happened was, so
The convention story. Okay.
Yes. So
Yeah.
sob stories are a big thing. Like
Okay.
and because like that, the reason I joined, like,
Same with like getting like American Idol or
Yes.
America's Got Talent. They
Yeah,
always want you
I
to have a
know.
story about your dad had cancer
Yes.
or you lost a limb.
yeah.
Or some people never thought you'd be able to speak and now you can sing. Okay.
Or like even my I was a sad stay-at-home mom and now I have this business, right? Like
So
everything
that was
starts.
yours?
Well, no, it was until
Okay.
I got sober. And
Okay.
then the company's like, ooh, you've got this great story. You got sober and you overcame so much. So then that became part of like the shtick of,
Okay.
this business was brought into my life and it, led me to people who helped me get sober. And now I'm, 9 months sober or whatever. Like I was asked to speak about it. And it's really hard because like I felt very honored and, you're taught in early recovery, like be of service, share your story. And so for me, I was like, okay, that's what I'm doing. But it was done in a way that was very, like I felt exploited, right? I felt like my story was exploited. And so as time went on, like I felt like I didn't want to do that and I couldn't do that anymore. So yeah, I was a speaker at convention. I was like a keynote speaker and, everybody knew who I was. I was like the corporate darling.
And so when you, a couple questions. So speaking of the corporate darling, there is like I was watching Real Housewives of Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
And her husband, I believe, was like an executive with some type of MLM.
Okay.
With Whitney Rose's. And then they let him go because they did this ridiculous scene where they were in their underwear, like putting paint on each other's naked bodies. And they said this just isn't the image of this like Mormon MLM whatever thing. So is there ever a place where someone like you then would be offered, because you're such a great speaker, now we'll buy your upline, but we want you to make $250,000-$300,000 a year and just be an executive? Are there those people?
Yeah, I mean, they're all corporations, right?
Yeah.
MLMs are all corporations. And the people, the CEO, CFO, the VP, like they're making lots of money.
Okay.
And it's, then a few people at the top of the pyramid, the contractors, are making money. And then everybody else is grinding, right?
Okay.
So it wouldn't behoove them to offer me a corporate position when I'm already grinding. Like I'm selling the dream, right?
Yeah.
So it's not that they couldn't. It's just like they wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where they want people, is in the pyramid. Mm-hmm. There's only room for a couple of corporate people. But yeah, everyone else is a contractor.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you did leave, did you lose followers and stuff? Did the people that were under you like weird?
Yeah. I mean, there were some people who were like, so between leaving and like announcing I was writing a book,
Yeah.
a lot of people were more understanding. And then when I wanted to talk about it, a little less understanding. So yeah, it was like you can't talk to Emily anymore, unfriend, block.
They were told that.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And was that hard?
Yes and no, because I feel like I had a very long period of exiting and I had talked to a lot of people about it. So I had my people, like the friends I brought in are still my friends. Even the friends who are still in, still my friends. I have friends who are still at the very top who, again, like it didn't change our friendship. But by and large, most people, they can't talk to me anymore because what I'm saying is like they can't listen to what I'm saying and still do what they're doing, right?
Right.
Like it's in direct opposition.
And when you start watching these shows about real religious cults as well as MLMs, because I swear to God, I think Netflix alone just like kind of killed organized religion to some extent for people.
Yeah.
You see enough of these things and you're like, what the hell have I been fed? And same thing with something like MLMs. Do you feel that have you had people that are like calling from a closet of just like, I want to get out. I don't know what to do.
Oh, I've had so many people reach out. So many people that, when I announced the book, I was like, it was very validating because I knew I'd get a bunch of hate, hate mail, and it was mostly people who were like, oh my gosh, this happened to me. And since the book has come out, which it's been, a day.
Yeah.
It's just been all positive messages. Like, I could have written this part of your story. I could have written this. I was so embarrassed for getting involved. It ruined this relationship. People don't talk to me anymore. And
people don't talk to people because they sucked them in to something that turned out not to be profitable for them.
And then they're blamed for it. So that's the really, really crappy part about it.
Yeah, you're right. It's why sometimes people are like, oh, do you have a good pool contractor? And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know if he'll be good for you.
Yeah.
It's the same thing of referring someone. So this is like the ultimate referral. You refer them into a career that cost them money, and then they referred people. So it's like, you are the one to blame if it didn't work.
And the statistics on it, it's like most people will never make a dime. And so and you're just so willing not to look at that because, again, you trust this friend and you think, well, she made it, so I can make it too. You just have that hope. But it's really hard because you develop these friendships. And then when you leave, it's sometimes people stay in because the known is easier than the unknown. It's like, I'd rather stay in and lose money than leave and lose friendships. Or I'd rather, you know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah,
that
and I also
really
think
hard.
that's also really sad when they go after like military wives and
totally.
And even Mormon moms and stuff, because it's, especially with Mormon moms, it's, encourage that you stay home with your kids and everything. So this is the perfect thing. And also they're used to rejection. If they have to go on that 2-year mission trying to knock on doors and recruit people, like that's why I think they are successful business people, because nothing bothers them.
Well,
they just keep chugging along. So I'm like, no wonder it's like successful for you or whatever.
Well, and there's a reason that there's a lot of MLM people in church communities because they're already, and if you're in a church community, like go to town, like whatever you want to believe or do, that's great. But they're already their own closed environments. And so if you're worshiping, believing in proximity with these people who are doing the same thing, and then all of a sudden they're selling, collagen pudding or whatever, like you're more likely to be, you're more vulnerable to that.
So when my kid was like little, I just remember we'd have like some activity and sometimes there was this mom there. And she was just like, Heather, I've been thinking about you and I've been thinking about how much you travel. And I really want you to try like this vitamin thing. I think you will absolutely love it. And it was something that I think I had heard my friend talk about. I'm like, is this an MLM? And my friend was like, yes, but I don't sell it, but I did buy it and I do like it. And she was harassing me so much that I was like, all right, I'm just going to give her $200 because I honestly, I can't keep going back to this thing.
Yeah.
And then my husband, I was like, knew that my husband would be like, what the fuck? You don't even take vitamins. What are you talking about? Like, whatever it is. Yeah. So I finally had to be really firm. And I'm like, no, I'm not interested. And she, that's the rejection, whatever. But I was like, oh, she was probably so excited to try to say like, I did what you told me, boss babe. And I got the nerve to talk to this mom. And I've been approached so many times like in my life to join churches, to join Mary Kay. I remember this other thing that was like, I remember this was so long ago. Someone called me and was like, I have to tell you about this thing. Donald Trump's involved in it. And it's a way that you can talk on the phone and look at the person at the same time. This is like that
Way before FaceTime, yeah.
And I was like, well, that's never going to happen. And I was like, oh, this is just some weird whatever.
Yeah.
And then we were supposed to meet because I liked her anyway. And I was like kind of curious about the weird thing. And then she flaked and never brought it up again. So I'm like, she must have gotten out. But she was one of those people that was always kind of doing those.
A serial joiner.
Like those things that, you would hear about. And yeah, I mean, I think it's all just like fascinating. I think so many people like want to have friends in a community, and that's sad too, that they're like, and I think it's really must be really sad when you do finally say like, no, I'm not in it, or I don't want it. And then like, I remember this one girl that was doing the Mary Kay, and we both had a job after college, and her mom was a big Mary Kay person. And she was like, I'm going to quit and just do Mary Kay.
Oh.
And I was like, all right, and then she took me to the brunch, and it was this woman got up there and she's like, the way I live my life is God first, then my family or my husband, and then career.
Oh.
And then a career, yeah. And I was like, well, I don't even have a boyfriend, but like I do believe in God, so maybe this is for me. Like I just like.
Yeah, you'll make it mean whatever it needs to mean, right? Yeah.
And then she was like, what do you think? I'm like, I don't know. She goes, well, you know what they say? If you wake up in the morning and you're still thinking about it, then it's meant to be. Well, of course you're going to wake up in the morning and still think about it. But I was thinking about like, God, get me out of here.
Yeah.
And I was like, and then back then you had to really keep the product.
Oh, yeah.
And my friend was like gorgeous and organized. And she had a whole second room in her apartment that was like, she made it a store. And because then you would like get a call from a client or whatever.
And bring it over.
And you bring it over. Oh, I remember the woman like, I just had a client say, hey, I'm going on a beach vacation. I need this. And I just made, this amount of money. And so I always thought you really were making money like actually selling the products. But now we really know the truth about it, that you really don't make any real money unless you're getting so many people under you.
Yeah.
But then I just thought about it. Once I told that girl, like, no, I'm not interested. But then she had a party at my apartment. And my crazy friend acted like she was interested and kind of wasted her time and then wasn't. And she was like annoyed. She never called me again.
Oh, she got what she needed out of you. She got your network. Like she got your people that you invited.
Think she enjoyed me?
No, like she probably did. She probably did, but that's how you see people, right?
Right, yeah.
It's like she got what she needed out of you at the time, and then she had to go on to the next person because you have to, or you're not going to make money.
The only time I felt that was when I was starting as a stand-up, and I needed people to come to the show in order for me to perform.
But that's different.
And I would like say something funny, is it? And then I'd say something funny, and then they'd be like, oh, you're so funny. I'd be like, want to come to see me at the Comedy Store at 8:30 in the Belly Room? And then I'd like get their number and then call them a few times. And then once they would come, and I was like, oh, thanks for coming. And then they would want to be friends. And then I was like, well, I don't really need any more friends, and I'm doing the same routine tonight. So
yeah,
you're no use to me.
But it's selling a service or a product is different than an MLM. Like even like selling this book, that's what one of the feedback, like the negative feedback is like, oh, well, now you're selling a book and making money off of this thing. It's like that's what being an author is.
No,
like, hello?
I don't think a book is
but like you're providing a service, you're a comedian, you're inviting people one time. You're not asking people to pay you to train them to be comedians.
Yes.
And then asking them to go get people to be comedians. And like that's a totally different thing. You're inviting people to be entertained.
How weird if that was a new MLM.
Oh God, get 5 people to teach. Yeah.
I mean, there are classes and stuff like that to do stand-ups, but again, that's different. You're having an experience. You're right. It's like there's really nothing like this except like a church situation where you're expected to pay a certain amount a year and always go and recruit people.
Yeah, and if you leave, like that, I think that's the biggest sign. If something is like, not on the up and up, what happens when you leave?
Yeah.
If I were to say to you like, oh, I tried being a comedian, it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be like, you're dead to me. I can't talk to you anymore. You'd have been like, yeah, it's hard. Yeah. But if I say like, oh, you're not in the MLM anymore, like Heather, I can't, like it becomes such a part of your identity. We can't interact anymore. And so when your friend had that party and, like that a friend didn't sign up, like that was the end, right, of your relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just realized that I really didn't know why she stopped calling me.
Yeah, I know.
But I didn't want to sell Mary Kay, and
Yep.
then neither did the one friend that was lost enough that maybe would.
Yeah. Yep. And it's sad. And she's, you know, like who knows if she's still in or whatever, but like she'll come to realize that one day, like, oh God, I just like kind of use people as like, you know, numbers. People were numbers. It's a numbers game. You're told that so often that you really just believe that. Like talk to one person and
And
if
you
they
think
say
a lot
no-
of people were like fake friends too?
Oh God, yes.
Like acting like you really wanted to be at this person's baby shower and stuff?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's just getting to know as many people as you can, like even going to an exercise class and like starting up a conversation. I remember being told like anytime you're on an airplane, make sure you talk to the person next to you, make sure you have samples in your purse and, you know, get their info.
Wow.
Yes, everything is about getting contacts.
I mean, all that is like, I get it, but also, again, you're never off the clock.
Never.
It's always just in your head.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you don't do it, you feel guilt that you didn't do it.
And you're blamed for it.
Yeah.
So that's, again, it's like you can make it if you work hard, which is not true because 99.7% of people don't. And if you don't, then you can be blamed for it. Well, you must not have worked hard enough. You must not have talked to enough people. You must not have whatever, fill in the blank. You can always say it's someone else's fault.
What about people that are serial MLMers?
Yeah, like join one and then join another. And join
Yeah,
another.
and then everyone's just like, oh my
Yeah.
God, stay away from that chick from high school.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
They just have hope that like it wasn't that company, that it's the next thing's going to be different. And they're searching for something like I was, like lots of people are. And I think that's where you have to step back and say like, what are you looking for? Like if you're that friend who's got the annoying friend, just say, what are you looking for when you join these? Like, how does this usually go for you?
Yeah.
Not great. You know, are you looking for a community? Like, let me help you find a different way. Like, let's join a meetup group or something. Play pickleball. I don't care. Like, don't buy into something that has failed you so many times. You know, are you looking for money? Let's look at actual jobs or actual stay-at-home, like, you know, virtual assistant or something like that. Like, there is a way to fulfill whatever that need is.
Yeah.
When MLM's just constantly, it's that sunk cost fallacy. Like, it's going to work out this time. I've already put in this much money. I might as well put in more.
Well, I am excited to take this book on my trip, going to Hawaii, to join an MLM. It's a special Hawaii trip. No, it's Hey Hun by Emily Lynn Paulson. Tell everybody where they can also follow you as well on social media.
Yeah, I'm everywhere on Emily Lynn Paulson. And you can get the book anywhere books are sold.
And you have your other book too.
Yes. Yeah. Highlight Reel. So you can find that on my website also.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, girl. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.